Rolling.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Little Bighorn Battlefield National Monument. My name is Michael Donahue, and I'm a 31 veteran seasoned ranger here at Little Bighorn, and I'm happy to be with you to explore another Miss Along the Little Bighorn episode. We want to remind everybody that our tour road is open, Battlefield's open. However, our visitor center and bookstore is still closed due to COVID. And if you'd like a junior ranger program, please just email our website. We'll be happy to send you a copy of one of those. We're standing in front of Cedar Coulee today. It's a big ravine. If you don't know what a coulee is a big ravine, basically. And behind me, you'll see cedar trees or juniper trees. We had a big fire here in the 80s and one in the 90s, which burned away most of the trees. But for many, many years, actually decades, there's been cedar trees growing in this large ravine behind me. This ravine is like a highway. It empties into what's called Medicine Tail Coulee behind me, which again turns left and goes all the way to the river where the village was. And this ravine has actually been seen in a movie. And some of you probably have seen that movie. It's called Little Big Man. Little Big Man had Dustin Hoffman playing Jack Crabb, supposedly a scout and survivor of the battle. And then you have Richard Mulligan playing Custer. And right at this spot it was filmed. You actually, if you watch the film, you'll see a shot of Cedar Coulee behind me. And Jack Crabb basically tells Custer, "You go down there, General, if you got the nerve." And some of you remember that famous line from the film. We're also standing in front of a road sign that I did about 17, 18 years ago, a narration of what happened in this area. And we talk about Sharpshooter Ridge on this sign, which is another story altogether. But we also talk about Custer possibly going down the ravine behind me, which was the interpretation at the time. And as we learn more every year, our interpretation changes. The idea of what happened here is it's not a static history. Interpretation changes as we learn more and more, and we know more today than we've ever known about this battle. I like to think about Little Bighorn as kind of being like a crime scene, and you've all watched films, forensic CSI things, and we know that basically at a crime scene you have bodies, and that happens here at Little Bighorn, so you got to look at the bodies and what happens to the bodies, where they're found. We also have testimony from eyewitnesses, both soldiers and warriors. And then you have the forensics, which tell another story, added more evidence. You know, artifacts, bullets, casings, all those things will give us more clues on what happened here, especially if there's a contradiction, which there is here at this spot. How did Custer get to the Indian village? Did he go down Cedar Coulee? Or did he take one of the other two coulees that's over here to my right, a middle coulee, or a coulee that's right behind the bluffs? Which one is the one he took? Well, we're going to talk about that today for a few minutes. We know there were some eyewitnesses here at the battle. We know that's the case. We also know that if you take this ravine behind me, it's going to lead you a mile away from the Indian village. And a lot of common sense says, why would Custer go a mile away and waste that time? As a matter of fact, John Martin said he was in a hurry. We were galloping. So the shortest distance would be go down one of the other ravines. So a lot of military experts have always wondered and asked the question, why would he go down Cedar Coulee? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. But let's get back to some of the eyewitnesses like John Martin and Knipe, who were messengers, and Curley supposedly was in this area. Peter Thompson was in this area. He was a soldier. We'll talk about him in a minute. But John Martin, he's going to take a message. He basically said that Custer went up to a high hill where he and the scouts looked down, and he said from right past that area, you could see the entire village. Well, folks, if you go down the ravine behind me, you'll never have that kind of view. And we know that the scouts said they went up on top of what we call Weir Point today, which is right over here, a sharp peak that's had the road cut through there. It had a little saddle at one time. And but that's the highest elevation on the battlefield, for sure. So John Martin says they probably went that direction. We also have Peter Thompson, a soldier whose horse was exhausted and fell out and would actually save his life as he couldn't get over there with Custer. You know what he said? He said from this area right through this area where we are, this is where his horse kind of faltered. He said that the soldiers, the last few of us, they rode over the hill. So again, probably not down the ravine, but over the hill, according to Peter Thompson. Captain Frederick Benteen actually took John Martin with him. He said, we followed the Custer Trail. And if you look at a map that he drew, and this is map evidence, it doesn't show him going down the coulee behind me. It shows him going right over the top of the sharp ridge we looked at a few minutes ago and going down from the first bluff ravine, closest to the river, and a very quick way to get down there. If Custer's in a hurry, probably, again, this makes sense. So we have Benteen's map. We also have Theodore Golden, who went over there and followed Custer's trail. He said it went over the high hill. Also, Colonel John Gibbon was right in this area, and he very carefully describes everything that he sees. And he said the Custer trail went right over the top of the high, sharp peak. So we're getting more and more evidence. There is an unpublished letter by Captain Thomas French, who said that Custer's men rode over the saddle to their death beyond. Edward Mcguire was an engineer. He came out here and carefully mapped everything on the field, including Custer's trail. What does Mcguire's map show? It shows that he went right over the top of Weir Point, along the first ravine behind the bluffs. The most important and crucial information and evidence is from the Three Crows scouts who went up on top of Weir Point. White man runs him, goes ahead in a hairy moccasin. They said that they went down the first ravine behind the bluffs. They came out here with a photographer named E.S. Curtis. He drew a map and very carefully shows Custer's trail going over the top of this big hill over here and going down the first ravine behind the bluffs. Anyway, John Martin is actually, we're going to do a timed ride out here. I actually dressed up a reenactor and had him go down this direction and go over that ravine over there. And we know basically that it is impossible to see what John Martin saw if he goes down Cedar Coulee. So the timed ride also excludes that idea of what he could and could not see. Now you might ask why this is important. And there is some important stuff happening here with this research. One thing is, if Custer goes down Cedar Coulee, he's going to be delayed in getting to the village. We know that if he takes this route over the sharp hill here and down behind the bluffs, that he will actually engage, and this is exactly what John Martin says happens. He engages the warriors at the river at the same time that Major Marcus Reno is fighting the Indians in the valley. So this whole concept of Custer attacking late and all the warriors leaving Reno and coming over here is completely a myth, along with the route down Cedar Coulee. Again, we thank you today for joining me for another Mist Talk. I'm Michael Donahue. Have a great day.